Nerd Morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy, and today on the Nerd Morning Show, we're going to be talking about Death Masks, which is book number 5 in the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. I absolutely love this book. It really just steps up the game from the last book, and I feel like that's consistent with most all of these books, is that they just get better and better and better. I absolutely love that because there's just so much more to love, and the books just get so much more energy and so much more excitement, and that is super consistent with this book. So the story starts out with Harry Dresden being at the Fowler show, and there he's being confronted by all of these different things. There's a vampire there, a priest from the Catholic Church who wants to hire him from a job, and then there are all these other things going on while he's trying to pent up his magic in order to be able to not have all of the electrical equipment explode or malfunction. And that is, I just think, a really interesting intro. And we've mentioned the Fowler show multiple times in previous books, and we finally are there and get to experience that, and it is a train wreck, and it's so satisfying as a reader to experience. So the plot of this story is essentially there's an individual who was murdered, and that's the police investigation aspect, an item stolen, that being the Shroud of Turin, and that needs to be recovered. And also with the vampire that was there at the show, that was Don Paulo Ortega of the Red Court, and he is throwing down this gauntlet for a duel that will make it so either Chicago will be a safe, neutral location, or that Dresden will be dead, and they'll be able to have peaceful overtures to put a pause, at least, to the war between the White Council of Wizards and the Red Court of Vampires. So the Shroud of Turin is stolen by a organization called the Church Mice, who specialize in essentially stealing from churches and selling those type of products in the black market. And we get to interact with them a little bit, and I think that Anna Velmont of the Church Mice is a super interesting character. It was really enjoyable to see her get one up on Harry Dresden and then take his jacket. And also later when she steals his car, it's more funny than anything else. It's just a really satisfying thing, and she is this total vanilla thief. She's got no magic abilities, no special skills. She just ended up trying to steal something, the Shroud of Turin, which had magical implications, and so she's thrown into this darker world, and she really handles her own. Granted, Harry does save her life multiple times, but she really handles her own in an impressive way. And that's where the shroud is stolen from. She gets it, and she's trying to make a deal and sell it to a buyer, who of course is John Marcone, who is the crime lord of Chicago in the Dresden Files. And he seems to get more and more and more involved in the magical side of reality, and that's interesting because, again, he starts out as this person who has no real relationship to the magical side of reality, and here he even has a security guard now who seems to be magically inclined, and so he is starting to dabble in that reality. Even though he has no magical abilities himself, he's seeing that there are threats or dangers or advantages in this, and a market that not everyone is really able to tap into because they're just not aware, and where some people get afraid or try to ignore or forget that magical element of reality exists, he is trying to see how he can profit from it. And I think that that's really interesting. Noting also that for his interest in the Shroud of Turin is not financially motivated. He's got another objective, but we discovered that throughout the story. So the Fallen are a group of individuals that are also after the Shroud of Turin. They want to turn its healing ability essentially to a biological warfare bomb, and they want to use it to spread disease and chaos. They are essentially fallen angels, demons, and they are trapped in these coins, and if someone grabs a coin, they are a tempter and tempt them until they essentially like mold or blend with these and are like partners in crime. And that's where we get these Denarian from the Fallen. And they are a really interesting group, and they're led by Nicodemus, who is terrifying. He's super, super ancient. In fact, they think that he could be a couple thousand years old. He wears a noose around his neck, and that has magical abilities beyond simply him being a fallen. He has the ability to be essentially impervious except for the noose. The noose is the only thing that can hurt him, and so that means you have to get up close and actually like try to choke him with the noose. That is the only way that you can like take him out, and that's pretty scary, pretty intense. And that means you can't like attack him in really any other way. So Nicodemus is a really frightening opponent to face. Because there is the Fallen, these this group of Denarian, the knights are there in full force. So we've met one of the Knights of the Cross earlier, Michael Carpenter, and he's this really, really, really likable individual. We also meet Shiro and Sonia. And just a note on Sonia, he is this non-believer wielding a sword of the cross, and for him, I think he ultimately describes himself as being agnostic, that he's just undecided about what things are. But I mean, he really talks and describes things as kind of this atheistic point of view, and him to being a knight of the cross and having that perspective is awesome and so funny. And he is from Russia. And then we have Shiro, who is a Knight of the Cross, and he is from Japan, and his sword is a katana, which is so cool again. Shiro is a big player in this story as he sacrifices his life for Harry Dresden, and there's this trade that happens, and you just instantly love Shiro, and you love him even more because of that. Another big character that we get to have is the Archive, a young, I think 7-year-old girl, and she doesn't have a name. Harry gives her the name Ivy, and she has all of the collective knowledge of mankind in her head. So she knows pretty much everything, but she's also simply a little girl, and she has tremendous magic ability and knows how to wield it and has information about everything. And so she is this tremendously powerful young girl, and the contrast of innocence and power is just really interesting in that character. But she is going to be holding the role as moderator to the duel between Don Paulo Ortega of the Red Court and Harry Dresden, which is still happening while Harry is hunting for the Shroud of Turin, is fighting the Fallen, is dealing with the church mice thieves, and is also going up against the crime lord John Marcone, all together in this story. And so there's a ton of things that are going on. The Archive's like security guard, driver, hitman for a hire individual is named Kincaid, and he is really, really interesting. And I love how like cool and collected he is, but he will drop bodies like no tomorrow. It's no big deal to him. Very, very interesting caretaker for this very lovable character, the archive. And I just find that contrast to be particularly interesting. We also get Susan here. This has been a big character for the four previous books. Susan is a person who has been halfway turned to being a red court vampire, but has rejected the full transformation and is found herself joined up with a group called the Fellowship of St. Giles, and they are a group of individuals who have not fully turned, who are fighting against the Red Court. And I think that's so cool. And she kind of has like superhero strength now and is found herself a secret organization fighting against this evil. And she has become super, super cool, where previously she was not as strong of a character physically, but was so excited and energetic to go in against these magical forces, and kind of had her reporter side. That was her power, and she definitely still is investigative and all that kind of stuff, but she's kind of turned from a Lois Lane type of character to a superwoman, and that's really cool to see that growth and transformation. Another big character, so many characters here, is Waldo Butters. He is this morgue person who's going in and investigating different things for them, and here he finds evidence of the plague, which is how we find out about this magical biological warfare bomb that the Denarian are trying to be able to do. And he loves polka music and is a really likable character. And he is one that we're going to see again in the future. Jim Butcher kind of described him as being a one and done character, but he was just so likable that he gets to stick around in future stories, and that makes me as a reader so happy because he's so fantastic. We also get towards finally in all of these different events, all the different people we interact with, we get to the duel itself. And the duel is so interesting and high energy. They end up going towards a duel of wills. And the archive pulls out a stone of Mordite, and the Mordite is a energy of death. It is this stone that's outside of not only our world but our reality, and if it gets too close to you, you will die. And like, essentially like it like turns you to dust. It's pretty intense. And so they have this floating in between them, Harry Dresden on one side and Don Paulo Ortega on the other, and they will essentially force their wills towards the other, and whoever has the stronger will win the duel. And this big showdown that we've anticipated, but of course Don Paulo Ortega is not going to play fair, tries to shoot Harry, and everything goes crazy from there. There are snipers and extra vampires that jump out, and things go nuts. And the duel is a bit of a shambles, and it's pretty exciting. A big, big moment for this. They finally get the duel like over with. Don Paulo Ortega running off, and Harry Dresden still being alive, so I guess it's a win. And then, of course, they have to run off and try to stop the fallen Nicodemus from using the Shroud of Turin for their warfare bomb that they're trying to be able to launch out. And it's they go towards the international airport, and are going to try to launch it off there. And they are almost successful. They call a bomb threat, and the airport's evacuated. Then they go from there towards a train, and they try to stop them there. And ultimately, things are resolved. The Shroud of Turin, though, is taken by John Marcone, who was happy enough to help them recover the Shroud since he was the one who tried to buy it initially. We see a couple days later that he has been after it to try to heal a girl who is comatose. And this is a really like heartwarming moment. We see him sitting there reading to the girl. We see him put the shroud on her and just wishing that she would be okay. And this like not bloodthirsty, but like heartless mob boss, we get to see a really heartful moment, and that's pretty interesting. Ultimately, they see that Harry gives a deal to him that he can have it for 3 days, see if it works, and if not, then it'll be given back to the church. Also, Ebenezer is this mentor for Harry Dresden, and he had thought back previously on them about them stargazing and having this like father-son type of relationship for the few years that he lived with him, and how they went and they saw a what they thought was an asteroid, but it really was a satellite, and they called it asteroid Dresden. Well, we find out in the news that the home of Don Paulo Ortega is demolished and is destroyed because a satellite fell and hit that location. That essentially was asteroid Dresden, is what they had called it. And so Ebenezer takes out this big threat from the Red Court of Don Paulo Ortega after he cheated on the duel from Harry Dresden. So that was a cool wrapping up of the story bit there. The last thing, and the thing that's going to carry over in significance in the future, is that while things are all wrapped up, Harry sees himself at the Carpenter location. While we're there at the Carpenter home, he's outside with little baby Harry, and a car drives by, a coin is dropped, and the baby is going to reach for the coin, and on instinct, Harry goes and grabs the coin to save the child. This was Lashiel's coin, one of the fallen, and then that means because he picked it up that he is now tainted and affected by Lashiel. And that essentially means it's the first steps for him to become one of the Denarian, being influenced by the fallen. And this is scary and dangerous, and from what they have found is that you have to either accept it or completely 100% reject it, and that puts Harry in a very dangerous, precarious position because he does not want to become a Denarian at all. That would be tremendously problematic for the future, but now he has the potential to be tainted like the scariest villains that we've had. And honestly, like, I feel like facing Nicodemus was probably, to me as a reader, more scary than going against Mab, the Queen of Air and Darkness. Like, Nicodemus was scary, and having Harry be put into that position is pretty intimidating and exciting to see how that story continues in future stories. So overall, I really love this story. I think there's just so much here, and it is such a good addition to the series. I've read all the series multiple times now, and I am so happy to return and reread them because they're such great books, and I get so excited to read them. The energy, the pacing is always so high. I am just a really big fan of Jim Butcher's Dresden Files series, and Death Masks is a great addition to that story. So those are some of my thoughts for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully this was an enjoyable conversation for you guys. Let me know some of your thoughts or things that you thought were big moments in the book. Put those in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas. Also, you can follow me on other social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, at Nerd Morning. You can also, if you choose, support me on Patreon. You can find me there at www.patreon.com/nerdmorning. Thank you guys so much for your support, and we'll catch you guys next time.